皆様、こんにちは。開始時間となりましたので、ウェビナーを開始させていただきます。本日は、IoT によるデジタルトランスフォーメーションの加速化と題したウェビナーにご参加くださいまして、誠にありがとうございます。今回は、製造業における IoT の変革の可能性について議論し、その可能性を十分に捉え、ビジネスチャンスとして検討いただく際に、潜在的なパートナー候補としてご検討いただけるイスラエルの先進 IoT 企業をご紹介します。本日の司会進行を務めさせていただきます、フロス&サリバンジャパンの佐藤千佳と申します。本日のプログラムをご紹介させていただきます。開始に際しまして、駐日イスラエル大使のヤファ・ベン・アリ氏よりご挨拶ございます。続いて、調査セールス VP のギラード・ベンボブ様から製造業における IoT とイスラエルでの注目度についてご紹介いただきます。その後、QC、キャスター、Go Arc Japan からそれぞれ紹介、プレゼンテーションをいただきます。続きまして、フロスタンド・サリバンのアントワン・フッシェが IoT 業界のトレンドと進歩について解説し、スケダセンス、バックソフト、カルタセンスより会社紹介をいただきます。その後、参加者からの質問を質疑応答の時間を取りまして、締めくくりのご挨拶という流れにさせていただいております。ウェビナーが終了いたしますと、短いアンケートがお手元の画面に開きますので、ぜひ回答にご協力をお願いいたします。本日は、業界の専門家や CEO など、素晴らしいプレゼンターの方々をお迎えしています。次のスライドでは、本日のご登壇者一覧をご紹介しております。今、失礼いたしました。画面に映っているのがですね、本日のご案内に、こちらの画面が本日のご登壇者の一覧になります。続きまして、本日のプログラム開始に先立ちまして、2点ご案内をさせていただきます。ウェビナーの途中でのご質問は、画面下の Q&A メニューからご入力ください。 皆様からのご質問は、本日のご登壇者、どなたにいただいても構いません。ご質問の回答者のご指定がございましたら、どなた宛てのご質問か分かるように、会社名またはスピーカーのお名前を明記していただいた上でご質問をお寄せください。また、本日の時間内に回答できなかった質問内容については、イベント終了後に回答を確認し、メールにて皆様に送させていただきます。また、本日のウェビナーは、英語、日本語の2カ国語で実施しており、同日訳をご利用いただけます。画面下の通訳メニューから言語をご選択いただけますので、好きな日本語、英語を選択していただければと思います。言語の切り替えはウェビナー中、いつでもご利用いただけますので、ぜひご利用ください。それでは、駐日イスラエル大使、ヤファ・ベン・アリ氏より開会のご挨拶をいただきます。よろしくお願いいたします。Ambassador?
I'm sorry, shall I start again quickly? Do you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you now, but we didn't hear you earlier. So maybe we would like you to go back and start from the beginning.
Okay, so let me, as I said, let me be quick and sweet and just open with few remarks. First, I would like to congratulate the Japanese government for the inauguration of the digitalization agency. This digital transformation has been a major issue to the Japanese government, and I really congratulating them for taking in a very quick fashion this endeavor. It's definitely a challenge. And we are sharing the challenges in Israel as well, because we also need to close the gap, even though we started this process 7 years or 8 years ago. Anyways, I declare this a very interesting first webinar that actually represents the way we look at our times today, times of changes. And the major issue that we have been embarked upon in our initiative is to face the challenges, not only of closing gaps of development of digital developments and other developments, but actually basically the challenges that the COVID-19 had on the economic environment, on the economic ecosystem. And definitely to define or decide how to build up the policy of an economic strategy in order to promote and to assist the business community in both economies, both Israel and Japan, how to help them really maximize values. As I see it, the synergy between Israelis and Japanese is quite promising and quite potentially great, not only for the two economies, but also for other economies in the world. But definitely, we as government organization, we wish to create an envelope that promotes such relations. And we decided to do it in a business fashion, like you business people are building business models, first thing is research. And then we were very happy to take on board Frost & Sullivan to assist us in the research phase. And in the last few months, a few months ago, we managed to conclude the research and to get up with highlight the major sectors that will accelerate the value in a short time, which means to be more benefits for all parties involved. Definitely through the research, we have achieved a much better roadmap on what to put the emphasis on, what to where should we put our efforts and government resources. Hence, this particular webinar that we are having here is an opening one. We selected one of the 5 different sectors that were identified as the most valuable fields of joint interest and mutual interest for both economies. And we are now entering into the implementation phase. We have been partnering not only inside the embassy, which is, we are having a very strong and capable economic attaches, which is headed by Daniel Kolber. You will hear him at the end, but also with our back office ministry in Jerusalem. So we are representing for you the government promotion agency, trying to have the business-to-business relationship much more fruitful, getting easier access and finding better connections, so both companies in both sides, both economies, could reach out and find each other and do business in a much more easier access way. So I wish to conclude by wishing you all who are attending this today a fruitful discussion, one that will lead to an accelerated implementation phase. Again, I wish to thank Frost & Sullivan for being on board with us in this building the strategy in this economic crisis times. Hopefully the COVID-19 will show its regression. Hopefully it will disappear from our life. We have to keep this optimistic approach. And I wish to wish all the Jewish partners that are around this table, this webinar, Shana Tova, as we approach the Jewish New Year on Monday. So great success to us all, and Shana Tova to all our partners. Thank you very much.
大使、どうもありがとうございます。続きまして、ソーサセールス VP、ギラード・ベンドブより IoT 産業の概要をお話しさせていただきます。Over to you, Gilad.
Hi, thank you. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon in Japan. On behalf of SOSA, I'd like to thank you for giving us your time and attention this afternoon. I'd like to present a little bit about IoT and kick off this part of the webinar. If we could go ahead and see the slides, that would be fantastic. Okay, so next slide, please. So my name is Gilad Ben-Dov. I am the VP of Sales at SOSA. And as mentioned, on behalf of the team, I'm happy to talk to you all today and let you know a little bit about IoT, a little bit about IoT specifically in Israel, and see how we go from there. In terms of agenda, we can go to the next step. Thank you. I'd like to talk about IoT in advanced manufacturing specifically, some examples of IoT in advanced manufacturing, some trends in IoT in the light of COVID-19, and then IoT in Israel, and a little bit about SOSA at the end. Next slide, please. So I'm sure that you are all very well versed with what IoT is, but just to set this kind of level playing field, basically it's all physical devices that are connected to the internet, right? So the beginning really was Industry 4.0, or the fourth industrial revolution, if you will. Some people call it the industrial Internet of Things, so that would be the IIoT. Basically, it's a connected industry. Advanced manufacturing are some of the terms that are used. Set technologies that digitize the entire production process by connecting physical and industrial assets to systems of data, and that data is collected and analyzed. These devices collect and share data through all different wireless methods and networks. As the global market becomes more competitive, improving manufacturing and these processes is truly imperative. And so the use of technologies and innovative solutions are truly the way forward. Right now, more relevant discussion is the Industry 5.0, right? The interaction between humans and machines. Next slide, please. Yeah, so thank you. So what does it mean? What is IoT in advanced manufacturing? Ultimately, it's assisting managers to make more informed decisions and perform at top level. So what is the premise really of advanced manufacturing? It's increasing output, for one. The second will be increasing quality and consistency. And then ultimately streamlining and automating the data transfer. And IoT basically connects the machines and systems. So we're talking about sensing of the physical environment, right? For example, sensing the manufacturing floor, if you will, real-time quality and equipment monitoring, compliance and safety, predictive maintenance, and all these really are aimed to help and assist managers to make more informed decisions and perform at the best of their capacity. Next slide, please. So some of the examples that would be relevant for advanced manufacturing are sensors, RFID, all different ways to monitor and get a feel for the physical world via, any type of machinery, right? So the list can really go of the list of methods that we would kind of segment this could really go on and on. So it could be smart stores, or smart cities, smart cars, healthcare, and so on. And then the application, really, how they segment it is broken down into what you can wear versus like a smart home or vehicles, and so on, as I mentioned here. Next slide, please. In terms of, IoT trends in the light of COVID-19, I mentioned a few points here. So smart industrial plants, social distancing, all these effects are truly noticeable and make the requirements and demand for monitoring and all different technologies even more apparent. For example, with social distancing, it makes manufacturing, all the different industrial activities and logistic operations, very, very complex operations, it makes it even more complex. So with IoT, assets can be effectively monitored remotely. Automated machinery will continue with its work even in the absence of people. Relevant personnel can be alerted from a distance when there's an intervention needed. In terms of retail, so you can do safer, more efficient stores or supermarkets. There's new innovative solutions for fully automated supermarkets and fulfillment centers, contact-free payments. In terms of IoT in cities, companies are talking about how to use monitors and different devices to track traffic on public roads, public transport, infrastructures, smart meters to kind of monitor energy. And then the last kind of more advanced stage of that Industry 4.0 that I mentioned is what we call the edge computing. Rather than IoT devices, it's collecting information directly on devices themselves, right? So saving bandwidth, reducing costs, and it's more financially and environmentally responsible. So IoT is truly one of the areas where the technology will transform our society from our perspective over the course of the next thing. These can be simple things like smart industrial plants and anything from there on out. Next slide, please. In terms of IoT in Israel and the strength of Israel in Industry 4.0. So Israel is not a large manufacturing sector, but is what we like to call at SOSA a huge export market. What I mean by that is, in a country that has just a few million people in population, there are about 500 companies in the IoT space. The average company size could be around 50 employees, but over all those 500 companies and in Israel, there's about 24,000 employees in the IoT space focused there. Some particularly interesting things are, the founders typically come with a lot of tech experience. So the typical CEO or founder of a tech company in Israel, an IoT-oriented company in Israel, comes with what we'd like to say, maybe not quite as much field experience, but a very, very rich tech orientation, a tech background, which serves as a very advantageous perspective, enabling them to solve very complex problems in an efficient, data-driven, and timely manner. In terms of abundance of deep technology experts, Israel's population is truly consists of many highly educated professionals who they really have a wealth of deep technology expertise, looking for applications for their capacities in the worlds of big data, artificial intelligence, communications, sensors, algorithms, and this really helps move things forward. And then there's a strong support offered by many different multinational organizations, corporates, governments, incentives. So obtaining cash flow to kind of go after that really helps companies to go forth, because these organizations understand that the opportunity in investing in such tech companies at an early stage. And so the subsidies and funding are very significant. And all of these kind of serve as a fertile ground for such companies to grow. In terms of the actual kind of lay of this kind of distribution of the companies, I'd like you, if you could, to move to the next slide. This is a snapshot that was made. There's a little shout out here to the team at Castro. They'll be presenting a little bit later, but this is kind of the segmentation of the companies or the kind of industries of IoT relevance within the Israeli space. So anything from operations and optimization, supply chain, through to inspecting security vulnerabilities and so on. Happy to share this if anybody's interested later, and the whole article around it. Next slide, please. So as I said, Israel is an export market. And why are Israeli tech companies so active in the space? Well, there are many reasons, but three at the core of it all is legacy and cultural challenges. So Israeli companies are very open to feedback, typically not afraid to test, pretty tolerant to errors. And that ultimately leads to creating very innovative solutions to particular instances. In terms of human capital, which is the next point, so the population of Israel is primarily based on a lot of immigration. So brought many highly educated, trained professionals into the local ecosystem. And this led to many inventions and breakthroughs in engineering and chemistry, physics, electronics, all that space, because of the abundance of very talented, educated people. And then the third is security vulnerabilities. I mean, industrial assets are considered as critical infrastructure, water companies, railways, electric companies. So there have been many hack attempts in Israel that brought local experts to develop applications that are required to, maintain critical infrastructure. I mean, one of the more recent hacks happened back in October 2020, where there were hackers that managed to take control for a short period of time of the local electric company, and it caused massive outlets in some of Israel's major cities. And then after the outages were fixed, they kind of took over the support hotlines, and it was a bit of an issue. So all these type of things are matters that Israel often encounters and then finds solutions for just because of the nature of it. Next slide, please. So in terms of a use case I'd like to share from the SOSA team, we recently partnered with Schneider Electric, a fairly large organization I'm fairly sure that you guys are familiar with. We partnered with them to run an accelerator for their company. Now, our accelerator at SOSA is a little bit different because its primary goal is to accelerate corporate and digital transformation, right? So it's not looking to do the standard, more familiar acceleration programs that you're with. It's looking to really get that digital transformation done. So what we did with Schneider was they turned to us. Schneider Electric turned to SOSA as an open innovation partner to run their accelerator in Israel, to identify and actively look for Industry 4.0 startups that could enhance their energy and automation digital solutions, right? So it was one accelerator. We found 5 tech companies that were suitable for them. It was a 3-month period, at the end of which they went into 4 POCs. So they tested 4 technologies. And after working through those technologies with 4 companies, they went on to next stages with 2 companies. And that was truly a successful program because they managed to reach their targets and goals in an efficient manner. And over the course of 3 months, they were ready, up and running. A little bit more about SOSA, please. Next slide. So SOSA is a global open innovation company. We work with multinational corporates, government organizations, municipalities from all over the world. Next slide, please. And what we do with these companies is we address their most complex business problems and source technologies suitable for them. So we find tech companies such as the ones that may present after me or others, depending on KPI that they'd be looking for. And we curate a program that is suitable for them to reach their goals and targets over the course of the program that we've tailored for them. So in terms of our partnerships, the headquarters are in fact here in Tel Aviv. We have our not yet, please, back one slide. Our headquarters are here in Tel Aviv. We do have presence in New York and in London. Been working with governments across the world, the Australian government for going on 6 years now, excuse me. Been working with the Basque region in Spain, with the city of Cologne, with the National Confederation of Industries in Brazil. We recently launched the Abu Dhabi Investment Office out here in Israel. In terms of corporate partners, next slide, please. In terms of corporate partners, we work with some of the largest reinsurers in the world, like Swiss Re. We also work with Tokyo Marine and MSNAD out in Japan. We work with some large banks in the world, like Royal Bank of Canada. And in terms of industrial companies, we work with Schneider Electric, HP, and many others. These are just a few to mention. I invite you all to our site to visit to get more information. You're welcome to contact me. And our programs are truly curated based on the needs of an organization. So it could be an open innovation program, it could be an accelerated like the one that I mentioned with Schneider Electric. We have other programs that can be provided. In terms of, next slide, please. In terms of industry, so definitely Industry 4.0, of course, as we've been discussing over this recent period, cybersecurity, fintech, and others as presented here, which truly overlap and are relevant for most companies. Finally, from my end, that's where I'd like to thank you for your time and attention. My Japanese is very limited, so arigatou gozaimasu, and have a great afternoon, you guys.
ギラードさん、ご紹介ありがとうございます。ここでぜひご出席をいただいている皆様の声をお聞きします。皆様の画面上にポールが表示されますので、ぜひご参加ください。今回のポールのご質問内容は、企業が競争力を維持するために IoT の導入は必要だと思いますかというご質問になります。少し皆様に回答時間を設けまして、皆様の回答状況を公表させて、紹介させていただければというふうに思います。皆様から続々ですね、回答いただいているんですけれども、皆様多分直感的に回答いただいているかと思うんですけれども、現時点、圧倒的にですね、はい、そう思いますというご質問の回答をいただいております。 ぜひですね、結果今表示させていただいておりますけれども、皆様本日特にご参加いただいている皆様に関しましては、多くの方も皆様がですね IoT の導入が必要だと考えているということで、この導入を実現するための実践的な方法というのも本日の中でぜひつかみ取っていただければというふうに思います。それでは企業紹介の1社目 QC について、進めていきたいと思います。QC 社については共同創設者および COO のダニエル・エルコ氏より会社紹介をいただきます。ダニーさん、よろしくお願いいたします。Over to you, Danny.
Thank you very much. Can you move forward with the slides, please? Another one. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Danny Berko. I'm the co-founder and chief customer officer with QC. I would like to thank you for joining my talk today about how QC helps process manufacturers save millions on their annual operating costs. Next, please. When we look on the entire supply chain, from the raw materials to the end product and beyond, we see that this is a very long and complicated route. And during this long and complicated route, many inefficiencies occur, resulting in losses due to excessive waste, product recalls, excessive energy consumption, and so on and so forth. I took here a quote from April 2021, earlier this year, saying that the industrial waste is the most contributor to the world waste, with a huge amount of loss every year, mainly to poor quality. Next, please. So this is exactly what QC comes to help: improve the quality of the product and the process, and by that, help you save money on your operational cost. In order to make you understand the technology, I took here an example of baking a piece of cake. You are going to prepare the cake, and for that, you're going to buy the top ingredients in the market, like the sugar, the flour, the eggs, and this is equivalent to the raw materials in the plant. Then you're going to buy the best oven and mixer, and even the cooking book, which are equivalent to the machines, the SCADA layer, automation layer, and so on and so forth. Still, with the top ingredients and the best tools, it's going to be extremely difficult to foresee ahead of time if the cake is going to turn perfect according to what you plan. It is a very long and complex route with chemical, biological, and sometimes physical processes that can cause inefficiencies and make the cake not as expected. I want to make sure that the cake is with the right texture, sweetness. I want to make sure that the cake is going to be identical to the cake I baked a week ago. That's in essence what QC does. Next slide, please. We provide an alert very early in the production process, plus a prediction. In this example, hey, the cake is not going to turn according to your recipe. It's going to be defective. Most importantly, QC unique value proposition is the prescription. It means the recommendation, what you need to do ahead of time during the process to make sure that the outcome of the process is satisfactory. In this case, the cake is going to turn perfect, a zero defective cake, such as please add 2 spoons of sugar, please speed up the mixture 10% faster, or please reduce the temperature in 2 degrees down. This is called product or process quality control technology. Next slide, please. For doing that, QC harnessed artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms. Now, in the industry 4.0 arena, there are many technologies that utilize artificial intelligence and machine learning. Just to make you understand the difference, if we take, for example, predictive maintenance, the main objective of predictive maintenance is to keep the well-being of the machine, while QT caters the entire supply chain. If we take the process optimization, sometimes referred to as soft sensor, QC provides a complete root cause analysis and prescription, which means for all those technologies, we are a little bit different and we provide other values. Next slide, please. If we take a tangible example of our technology and the usage in the building material sector, I took here a cement plant, but we have also experience in the glass, in the metal and steel, in the gypsum industries as well. In this example, we help the customer by predicting a 28-day cement strength. This feature is extremely important because of two things. First, the higher the quality of the cement, the higher the price you can sell it. And furthermore, cement strength is regulated very strictly. So if you don't meet the regulation, you need to degrade it, rework, and do a lot of things that burden your operational expenses. So in this example, we are predicting and prescribing 28-day cement strength. And by that, we improve the productivity, but as important, we help in reducing the energy cost by 10%. More than 50% of the cement product cost is contributed due to the energy cost. So saving 10% is a large contribution to the factory operational savings. The indirect contribution is as important because the building materials industry is responsible for more than 7% of the global CO2 pollution. And this is the largest polluting sector in the world. So by reducing the energy consumption, we are also reducing the CO2 pollution and help to the plant and the factory sustainability. Next slide, please. Another example is from the chemical sector. In this example, it's a fertilizers factory. And here we help in increasing the yield, which means the productivity is higher. We are able to help this customer with increasing the yield with more than 15%. And the indirect contribution is providing a stabilized production process. Less downtimes, less disturbances, and better utilization of the raw material. For example, you don't need to waste too much raw materials in order to get the desired outcome. Next, please. QC serves continuous and batch process manufacturing from the building materials. I mentioned the glass, the metal, the gypsum. The chemical could be adhesives, paints, fertilizers, pharmaceutical substances, and so on and so forth. So we are already serving those sectors in Europe, in Americas, and we are reaching out to you to expand our efforts into Japan. So we are looking for partners and end customers in the building materials and the chemical sectors. And we would be delighted to communicate with you either directly or via the very dedicated embassy, the Israeli embassy to Tokyo. Next slide, please. With that, I complete my talk. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you very much.
タニーさん、ありがとうございます。続きまして、企業紹介2社目、キャスター CEO 創始者、オメア・ブレア氏が IoT がどのように活用できるか別の視点からご紹介いただきます。
Hi, everyone. Sure, thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for the time and the opportunity, Yafa and the team. If we can move to the first slide, I can start the presentation. So we are Castor, and I'm Omer, I'm the CEO of the company. We are the manufacturer's gateway to 3D printing. Let me start with presenting the team in the next slide. So my background in 3D printing is from a large company called Stratasys in the 3D printing arena. In my background, I'm a mechanical engineer, but I also hold an MBA in entrepreneurship and innovation. They both from Tel Aviv University. This is where we sit. We're backed by a venture arm of Tel Aviv University. I founded the company together with Elad 3.5 years ago. Elad is the CTO of the company. He wrote code for huge companies like Holiday Inn and Priceline and led team of developers. He is now also the VP R&D. We're almost 20 employees backed by Xerox, the print company, Chartered Group, a Japanese private equity firm in Tokyo managed by Mr. Eyal Agmoni, and Evonik, the materials company from Germany. Next slide. So I'll start by telling you that we have those customers as paying customers today, you can see almost 10 Fortune 500 companies. And in the next slide, you can see we have some partnerships with large organizations in the Industry 4.0 transaction. And the reason why those companies are using Castor is mainly because they are aware that 3D printing is not about prototyping anymore. It's about end-use parts for end-use manufacturing. But in the next slide, you can see that what they are missing is a lot of information and in-house expertise to use 3D printing to generate profits. So when a company produces one of those machines that you can see in the slides and send its blueprints to a manufacturer to actually produce the parts, none of the sides consider 3D printing as an option to reduce costs. Next, please. So this is where we are coming into the picture. We offer a decision support system for utilizing industrial 3D printing, which means that we enable manufacturers to decide whether to prefer 3D printing over traditional manufacturing methods when it can save them time and money. We do that by analyzing CAD files, CAD, computer-aided design, 3D objects. So we analyze CAD files technically and economically. And within that, we have three major technologies. That's in the next slide. The first technology of Castor is analyzing thousands of parts at once. So companies can really use Castor as a screening tool, initial process to upload the whole dashboard of a car or the whole interior of an airplane or a whole inventory of spare parts to very quickly in seconds understand whether there are opportunities to use 3D printing out of this full bill of material. The second capability of Castor is the ability to combine multiple parts into one. And the third capability we own is the ability to reduce weight. That's crucial for automotive, aerospace, medical devices. We can actually provide hollowed parts, which are strong enough, like the fully dense part, according to a simulation tool we have in additive manufacturing. So next slides, please. Few examples. Here is an example of a metal part from a large company called Stanley Black & Decker in Danbury, Connecticut in the US. That was identified out of a large machine that makes helicoils, those small helicoils for automotive. And they uploaded this bill of material of the entire machine, and we've identified this part, and it was delivered in 9 days versus 9 weeks, and also saved 50% of its traditional manufacturing cost just by identifying this opportunity out of a lot of parts they make using our software. Next slide, please. Here is another example of how as a combined part, those three different parts saved HP Cytex about $65,000 a year and about $400 per such an assembly. It's part of our algorithm. Next slide. So these are the kind of things we do either for end-use parts, either for jigs, tools, and fixtures in the production line itself, or either for spare parts aftermarket services. We have three different products in the next slide. An on-premise version, that's Castor Enterprise in the middle, a light version, which is a cloud version, that's on the left, and a white label option that we can customize the software for you if you're a large player in the additive manufacturing area. So next slide. We believe that 3D printing is a driver of profitability. You need to identify those opportunities, and this is exactly what we do. We would love to contact you either in 3dcastor.com or at my email. Thank you again for the time and the opportunity. Arigatou gozaimasu. This is it on my end.
ありがとうございます。おめやさん。続きまして、企業紹介第3社目は GoArc Japan です。 CEO リチャード・ロテム・アルクビ氏よりお話しいただきます。
はい、皆さん、こんにちは。今日は皆さん、お話を聞きに来ていただいてありがとうございます。そして、イスラエル大使館、フロスト&サリバン社を感謝しています。GoWorkジャパンの、代表をさせていただいて、アルコビ・リチャード・ロテンです。皆さんが、その通り日本語で話をしています。まずちょっと自己紹介をさせてください。私はイスラエル生まれ。30年前、日本にバックパッカーとして来まして、日本大好きになりまして、そこから移住を日本にしまして、30年ほど日本に住んでいます。私は2つの会社を経営してまして、長年建築家として、日本で起業をしています。そして昨年ですね、昨年2月にGoWorkジャパンを設立しまして、今に至っています。なぜ私はGoWorkジャパンを設立しましたかと言いますと、次のスライドに行きますと、説明しますが、まずGoWorkジャパンとはこの書いてある通りですね、安全と効率の両立をする、会社です。そして、なぜこの会社を、そもそもイスラエルでGoWorkという会社はなぜ、何から始まったかというと、2015年に私の義理の兄、イスラエルにいる義理の兄はバザン社というイスラエルの最も大きな製油会社ですね、に副社長としていた頃にですね、彼は人事担当でもあって、心理学博士も思って組織学の学者としてもいます、人事の担当としていました。その時にたくさんの労災事故を目にしてました。そして彼はいつも労災事故とやっぱりほとんど人的ミスが多かったんですね。心理学者としてはどうやって人をその事故から助けられるか、そして心理学者としてとイスラエルの相手をどうやって合わせてそういったような労災事故を減らしたいという気持ちから、アイデアが生まれてました。そしてイスラエルの技術と、行動経済学の、技術を使ってGoWorkが生まれました。皆さんも、日本は、次のスライドお願いします。日本は、すいません。はい。日本でも皆さんよく、見る看板だと思います。安全第一ですね。でも安全は基本的に非効率であるのが皆さんも分かると思います。日本は世界から見てもすごく安全な国ですね。事故が非常に少ないんです。しかし、それでも年間で日本では1000人以上が命を落としています。労災事故でですね。それだけではなく、傷者を合わせると年間12万人の被害者がいます。日本は世界にしたら少ない方です。なぜ日本は安全だっていう国が有名なんでしょうか。それは日本人は真面目ですから。日本はちゃんと守るし、そして安全に非常に力と時間とお金を使っています。だから安全ですね。誰に聞いてももっとお金をかけたくない、もっと時間をかけなく安全にしたいって言ったらみんなイエスと言います。GoWorkは世界初、安全を IT 化にした、システムになります。私たちはどうやって安全にしていくのか、どうやって未然に事故を防ぐかっていうのは、今日は短い時間なので、ポイントだけ、お伝えしたいと思います。安全に対しての、各企業の対策として、巡回だったり、大きな企業ですと、例えば、 巡回だったり、作業届だったり、同じ作業が重ならないように、事故につながる作業が重ならないように管理をしたりとか、たくさんの時間と手間をかけています。Goワークはそのアナログなところ、皆さんが日々紙に書いているものはすべてシステムの中に入れることは可能にしました。そしてそれだけではなく、未然に事故を防ぐために、すべてのデータを一瞬でグラフ化にしたり、分析をしたりすることによって、どこか危険があるか、すべては前もって見えるかにしまして、そして早めに手を打つこと。そして先ほども話しましたが、行動経済学を取り入れたことによって、職場全体が安全な会社に変わっていく。いわゆる、実際現場で働いているスタッフがより安全への意識が高まっていく技術は、組み込まれています。なぜこのシステムを入れるメリットがあるかっていうと、次のスライドをお願いします。我々の導入事例として少し挙げていきますと、今実際に利用されているケペル社、シンガポールでの工場の例としますと、毎日作業届、作業前のチェック、安全チェック、そして、打ち合わせ、すべての、作業はアナログでずっと行っていたんです。今聞いている皆様の大きな企業でしたら、いまだにアナログチェック、アナログの確認、作業が重ならないようなことをアナログでやっていると思います。毎日500名の2時間の作業を20分に短縮しました。そうしますと、皆さん500名かける2時間、1時間半の節約いくらになるかと、皆さんもおそらく計算できると思います。こういったような、当然安全をより効率化していきますと、たくさんのメリットがあります。まず、金銭の面、経費の節約、そうすると、効率よくしますと、当然より安全にもなっていきます。安全になると命も助かるし、当然命を助かることによって、万が一事故の場合は、企業イメージにも大きなダメージはあると私は思っています。次のスライドお願いします。私たちは今、世界で、たくさんの企業に少しずつ、広まっています。Goワークは2015年にアイディアから始まって、2017年スタートアップとして、企業としてスタートしまして、そして今、すごく、成長してきています。日本では去年の2月からスタートしまして、システムを日本に合わせるような作業を1年以上かけてきました。当然日本語だし、当然日本語だけではなく、日本の文化と日本の企業、実際現場で働く皆さんにフレンドリーなシステムを、開発しました。そして、今年の7月から初めて日本での販売を始めました。今は日本ではまだ契約は一つも、ありませんが、たくさんの企業から、そして、行政からも、問い合わせをいただいています。今私たちは日本ではもちろんユーザー様を募集しています。ユーザー様だけではなく、パートナーとして我々と一緒に日本にこのシステムを広めて、早くもできるだけ多くのユーザーを増やして、そしてより日本を安全な、職場に変えていきたいです。ですので、パートナー企業も募集していますし、我々だけでは力不足なので、パートナー企業とユーザー様のぜひ連絡を待って、より詳しく説明させていただきます。今日はありがとうございました。
リチャードさん、大変流暢な日本語でのご紹介ありがとうございます。ここまで 3社から企業紹介をいただきましたが、ここでもう一つ別のポールをご用意しておりますので、ぜひ参加者の皆様に回答に参加いただければと思っております。次のポールの質問の内容については、IoT 導入によりどのようなメリットを期待されますかというご質問になります。ぜひ皆様が期待するメリットというのを選択をいただければというふうに思います。皆様から続々、4つの選択肢がある中で、かなりですね、意見がこちらは分かれていらっしゃる部分かなというふうに見受けられますけれども、はい、皆様にも今ですね、回答の方を共有をさせていただいております。皆様それぞれですね、違ったニーズ、期待があるというのをご確認いただけるかと思うんですが、一番結果として高かった期待するメリットとして、期待値が高いのは効率ということで、データ量、その分析時間増大による作業の効率化といったところが一番注目をされていらっしゃるということですね。皆様、ポールへのご参加ありがとうございます。そうしましては、こういった部分についてもですね、IoT 業界のトレンドというところについて、含めてですね、次のプレゼンテーションで話を聞いていきたいというふうに思っております。この IoT 業界のトレンドについて、フロスト&サリバンジャパン株式会社成長戦略マネージャーのアントワン・フーシェよりお話をいただきます。アントワンさん、どうぞよろしくお願いします。
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ika-san. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today. So my name is Antoine Huchet. I am a consulting manager at Frost & Sullivan Japan. And in this section, if we can go to the next slide, I will go over the adoption of IoT technology, and in particular, how maybe the 5G adoption cycle, which is coming, will further drive, let's say, the future of manufacturing and help solve some of the key critical challenges that manufacturers are facing today. And we'll also look a little bit into what are the implications for the cybersecurity landscape. So without further ado, we can move to the next slide and start this presentation. All right, so on this slide, what Frost & Sullivan has tried to do is we have mapped the top 10 technologies which are really increasing in adoption across industries. So we have AI, cloud, big data, 5G, AR, VR, 3D printing, and more like digital platform that are really all converging together and enabling new applications. And really the concept of IoT-based advanced manufacturing is becoming a reality from this convergence. So why is this topic relevant for Japan today more than ever? Is while we have Japan, which is actually the third biggest global economy, with quite a good leadership in automotive and industrial manufacturing. When we look at Japan's industrial production, it has been quite stagnant or even declined over the past 10 years. And overall, if we look into, let's say, digitalization of operation, Japan has been quite behind other advanced economies. So this is why, among other things, recently we've heard the Japanese government release the Japan Digital Agenda for 2030. So we see there is a strong push here. So looking specifically at this slide, as we can see, in terms of different levels of technology adoption between industry, generally automotive, aerospace and defense, as we can see here, and food and beverage and life science have some of the highest level of adoption across technology. But of course, this space is ever evolving, and I would not be surprised if in 3 to 5 years, this slide would look much greener, especially, let's say, as companies adapt to the new normal and react to the COVID pandemic. We'll see more adoption of these technologies to obtain a competitive edge, or even, for example, to meet sustainability objectives, which we're starting to see is becoming a big driver across industry as well, and some challenge like labor availability in advanced economies. So overall, if we look at factories and plants, they're increasingly adopting AI and analytics, for example, to have a real monitoring in real time or near real time across facilities and assets. So they feed those data into a dashboard that will really enable the plant managers to make real-time decisions for their productions, for their maintenance, or even if they have to customize specific production. And they will also enable further safety and security of employees, as we've heard from previous presentations. So we also have additive manufacturing, which of course is a very interesting technology. And it's really emerging to enable mass customization of products, but also it helps manufacturers really complex shape with innovative materials and designs with little to no scraps or material waste. Right. So this decade, as companies seek to meet their sustainability targets in manufacturing, and as product customization needs will increase, we do expect this manufacturing process to really gain in adoption. So as we move forward on this presentation, I'll also touch upon other technologies, starting with 5G in the industrial context. So if we can move to the next slide. Yes. So on this slide, here the idea is really, when we think about connectivity in the industrial context, it has generally been depending on network-based technologies such as Ethernet, fiber, Wi-Fi. And while still those technologies have been able to enable IoT application and technologies, these networks still regularly fail to solve key customer issues. Communication incidents, for example, can have a big incident or negative impacts on business and operation. And at worst, it could even lead to some fatal accidents. And that's why more reliable and capable networks are required today. So we do expect that the high availability and reliability of the 5G network will significantly enhance IoT application and even enable new cases. So to give you a concrete example, if you look at a process plant, a small fire or a gas leak could quickly degenerate into a much, much bigger problem or danger, like an explosion, for example. As such, every second really counts. So this is why leveraging 5G with a sensor layer across assets and pipeline enable real-time data gathering and generation of alerts or data on any anomaly or deviation which is happening in real time. So really a plant manager with that data is empowered to make immediate action and solve any issues that arise. So this is also valid in case of the accident of a lone worker or an intruder coming into the plants. Again, combined with video analytics, it can provide this information in real time and enables the dispatch of medical or security personnel. Another area which is quite interesting, where we expect 5G to have a high impact, is when we look into production quality consistency. So for example, 5G combined with other analytics technology on the production line can enable the detection of even the tiniest deviation as they happen. And then of course, we can make corrective action as soon as possible. So this will really ensure that plants and factory will operate at the best possible operational efficiency and limit any waste that could happen while reducing cost of operation. And so as we have this real-time monitoring of the complete plant and factory operation happening, we are seeing that high IoT is actually changing the way maintenance and services happen. So if we can move to the next slide, we'll look a little bit deeper into that. So on this slide here, I would like to introduce you how IoT is transforming, again, the maintenance and service landscape. So originally, in industry, we had a very much reactive or planned approach to maintenance. And now we are seeing a real shift to a more proactive or even predictive maintenance. So what does this mean is that generally manufacturers in the past or even today, they've been struggling with traditional manual maintenance approach. So for many years, they've been reacting to machine breakdown, which means there is significant downtime in a factory. So again, it causes a lot of cost, a lot of loss of production. And when we look at traditional planned maintenance approach in specific industries, some systems have to be isolated so we can plan a manual inspection. So what this means is, for example, if you look at a petrochemical plant, a storage tank or maybe a pipeline would have to be isolated from the system so we can go and, let's say, assess the situation of those equipment. And again, stopping this will cause a lot of productivity loss. There's also hard to reach area like offshore wind or even let's say oil rigs, which are difficult to access. So again, there is difficult of access and safety risks for employees. So now more than ever, IoT is really enabling remote monitoring and predictive maintenance. So for example, if we look into, let's say, drone technology, it's actually quite an interesting emerging technology, which is very efficient and a safe way to conduct asset maintenance. For example, according to data that we have gathered, if we look into drone-based asset inspection, it could help reduce up to 80% of maintenance operation for an oil rig, or even storage tank or wind turbines. So really there is significant, let's say, benefits to this. If we look into AR technology or even other kind of digital platform, it can also help, let's say, shift the knowledge of experienced employees into the new employee or less experienced employee, especially as today, one of the big issues in Japan is the lack of workforce availability, the high number of people that will retire this decade. So technology is now enabling the enhancing of transfer of knowledge, but also enabling remote support of existing employees. There's quite a lot of interesting development happening in this area. So if we can move to the next slide. So in addition to predictive maintenance, there's also an interesting thing that IoT is going to enable. And right now, one of the big challenges that enterprise or companies are facing is the lack of, let's say, real-time supply chain visibility and transparency. So it's caused a lot of efficiency throughout the steps of the supply chain, and it is across industry. Today, for example, there's quite a lack of inventory visibility, which is making it difficult for manufacturers to fulfill critical orders, for example, or short timeline order. And there is also significant amount of stock duplication across the world, lack of track and trace capability, and general inefficiency in terms of inventory management. And that is valid across the world. So while each segment of the supply chain, from procurement, transportation, manufacturing, each are now implementing their individual solution, there's still today a relative lack of integration across supply chain players. So again, it still increases the complexity of procurement process, and generally it results in a higher cost for all players. And interestingly, if we look at the COVID pandemic and the impact that it had across industries, it really exacerbated most of these issues and significantly disrupted global supply chain. So as we look into IoT, increased visibility in the supply chain is no longer, let's say, good to have, it's a must have. And a lot of players are now looking into IoT, such as AI, digital platform, even blockchain, and even more, so that they will have an increased integration across players, across systems, to really create a web of interconnected supply chain across the world. So if we can move to the next slide. All right. And as we move forward again, today, speaking about the impact of the pandemic, while many are able to work from home across sectors, when we look at the manufacturing sector in particular, there's many frontline workers who do not really have that luxury. It actually has been one of the biggest challenges for companies during the pandemic. Many factories had to shut down, and it has resulted in nearly all players to pay an increased attention and even invest further into digital technology. So as we expect, let's say, a new low contact manufacturing ecosystem to be the new normal and to be one of the key trends for the future, digital technology are really increasing in adoption. So this also links to the concept of decentralized manufacturing, right? So as we've discussed about the global supply chain and the fact that it was disrupted globally, company will no longer entirely rely on a major manufacturing location, but they will really focus on having maybe more factories able to serve the regional or even local markets. And so as a result, companies will have to build or have a much more complex ecosystem. And all these applied technologies, such as AI, blockchain, digital twin, 5G, etc., will be key in creating that global enterprise monitoring system, so they can have full visibility of their operation. Again, this will enable improvement of manufacturing output globally and optimize the overall workforce utilization while having more visibility across the group. But so now there is actually an important question that should be raised is what makes the implementation of IoT successful, right? What are the key factors for IoT to actually be well implemented? So this is what we're going to see on the next slide. All right. So first and foremost, of course, the solution must bring business benefit for the organization. It seems obvious, but again, at many times, or too many times, specific departments or organization, we look into a technology and jump into it because it's innovative and because they want to be on the technology hype. However, they may not clearly assess, will it actually improve operation efficiency? Will it bring cost reduction? Will it improve the safety of employees? And not thinking about the problem approach first can make it unsuccessful. It's also important for the company to have a clear strategic roadmap and gradually move forward with a project. So for example, starting with a proof of concept, validate the solution, gather feedback, and then move forward in the full-fledged implementation. And they have to ensure that it actually aligns with the full, let's say, business strategy of the company. All right. Again, as we move forward, there's also a key need of capabilities within the company. As all those technology move forward, it's important for a company to have the right skill set internally and for internal departments from IT to OT to be able to work together. And last but not least, a very important factor is the cybersecurity aspect. Again, as there is much more connected device as IT and OT system connects, there's more, let's say, open risks for players. If we can move to the next slide, I will go a little bit deeper into that. All right. So again, as we can see on this slide, levels that were typically separated before are now interconnected with each other. And as we've seen, let's say, happening in recent years, we've seen a lot of, let's say, cyber attacks happen. So just briefly go over some example of key attacks and what the objective was. For example, there could be hijacking of industrial system, let's say for specific economic or political gains. There's also what we call white hat hackers that are generally focusing on identifying weaknesses or improving specific systems. But generally, this is some kind of ethical hacking. And then what we call black hat hackers, which generally like, let's say, the typical bad guys that would generally do espionage, extortion, theft, and vandalism, right? An interesting example that happened in recent years, about 5 years ago, is an activist group in Syria, let's say, compromised the water treatment plant, which had been known under the alias of Kemuri Water Company. And the hackers, they went into a web vulnerability through the internet-facing customer payment portal. And they were able to access the control system of the water plant for the water treatment plants. And through this, they were able to actually change the level of chemicals being put to treat the tap water. And really the main objective was to handicap the water treatment and production capability of the plant. So it was just bad intent. There's also generally theft of intellectual property or valuable assets, and also a very simple mistake by employees. So interestingly, if we look, let's say, at the bottom part of this slide, we've taken this data from a survey from SANS. Here we've been looking into the top 3 threat categories, let's say, identified, or which interviewees were more concerned about. Interesting, the leading of the top, let's say, concern was the fact that the added device and things were not able to protect themselves. And the second one was actually internal threats or accidental threats. So simple employee making mistakes. And so as we reach the end of this presentation, we can probably move to the next slide, and I will just give a few key takeaways. So the conclusion really, I think it's important to remember that cybersecurity will be a critical success factor for the successful implementation of advanced manufacturing technologies. And there's also going to be a significant amount of opportunities around solutions that will enhance worker safety and productivity, notably when we look into AR, VR, 5G, AI, and advanced analytics. And last but not least, IoT will really enable increased interconnectivity between shippers, carriers, receivers, and we'll see an increased emphasis being put on the traceability of transaction and the visibility across the supply chain to really solve key issues that the supply chain is facing today. So thank you very much, everybody. And I hope this was insightful for you.
アトワンさん、どうもありがとうございます。今のプレゼンテーションでは IoT の導入について様々な側面でお話をいただきました。調査結果からいろいろな情報が提供されたかと思いますが、本日3回目のポールを実施したいと思います。この点について、次のご質問の内容については、御社における IoT の導入段階ということで、皆様の会社の中で今どういった状況にあるのかというのをぜひ回答選択をいただければというふうに思います。導入が進められているというのが今のアントワンさんのプレゼンの中でも発表がありましたけれども、皆様本日ご参加いただいている皆様はいかがでしょうか。皆様の回答続々と集まってきているようなんですけれども、今のところですね、圧倒的に多い状況といたしまして、圧倒的にというよりもですね、大体半数以下 40% の企業の皆様が IoT の導入は始めたばかり、ちょうど変革期にあたるという、大変ですね、重要な時期になるかと思いますので、本日提供するような情報もぜひそういった中での検討材料ということで、役立てていただければというふうに思います。それでは本日のプログラムのですね、企業紹介、引き続きまして、4社目の企業紹介に移らせていただきます。続きましては、スキャダフェンスに関しまして、日本国内事業責任者兼 APAC 営業ディレクターの柿貫美代氏よりお話をいただきます。柿貫様、どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。
はい、ありがとうございます。スキャダフェンスの柿貫と申します。よろしくお願いいたします。今日は私どもスキャダフェンスという会社のソリューションを少し短い間ですけれどもご紹介させていただければと思います。スライドを2枚進めてください。はい。まず最初に少し会社のご紹介をさせていただきたいと思います。スキャダフェンスと申します。2014年に創業した会社でして、今日参加されている方はご存知の方多いかもしれませんけれども、イスラエルの国防軍に通称8200と言われるサイバーセキュリティの専門ユニットが実はありまして、そこを卒業した若いエンジニア2人がですね、2014年に創業した会社になります。なのでサイバーセキュリティっていうのが私どものソリューションの軸にはなってきますけれども、じゃあ適用領域どういったところなのって言いますと IT、OT で言いますと、OT 側ですね。オペレーショナルテクノロジー、制御システムとかですね、いう呼び方がされる。具体的には、例えば、電力会社の発電所であったりとか、ビル管理の、ビル管理システムであったりとか、それから我々特に日本国内では力を入れさせていただいているのが製造業のお客様になりますけれども、製造業の工場の生産、機器といったところに対してのセキュリティを担保していく。なので今日のテーマでもあります IoT であったりとかスマートファクトリーと、こちらにもありますけれども、製造業のデジタルトランスフォーメーションを進めていくためのセキュリティソリューションといったものを提供させていただいている会社になります。次のページお願いします。 いろんな受賞をいただいてます。今日主催をいただいております、フォレスト・サリバンさんであったりとか、ガートナーであったりとか、そういった主要の調査機関であったりとか、それから、業界の、セキュリティ業界のですね、メジャーなところの賞などもたくさんいただいております。市場からも非常に高い評価をいただいているソリューションというふうにご理解をいただければと思います。次のページお願いします。じゃあここで私どもスキャダフェンスのソリューション、一体何ができるのといったところをちょっとご紹介をさせていただきたいと思います。スキャダフェンスのソリューションは、制御システムのネットワーク上に設置をして、その制御システムのネットワーク上を流れている通信、トラフィックの情報を取得して、その取得した内容を解析、分析していろんな知見を得ていこうといったタイプのソリューションになります。具体的に例えば工場のケースで言いますと、FA のネットワークの中に設置されている LAN スイッチのミラーポートに我々のソフトウェアが乗っかっているサーバーを接続して、そこからそこにデータを、ネットワークの通信の情報を取得していくということになるんですけど、こう一つ大事なポイントというのは、我々のソリューションはデータは取得しますけれども、こちらから工場のネットワーク上に何かを送り出すといったことはしません。一方通行のやり取りです。なので、一つ工場含めて制御システムの重要なポイントとしてある可用性といったところを考えたときに、こちら側から何か今動いている生産プロセスに対して、生産プロセスで動いている機器に対して何かコマンドを送ったりとか、ポーリングをしたりとかっていったことはしませんので、現在の稼働状況をきちんと担保した上で、セキュリティを可視化していくといったところを我々のソリューションの一つ大きな特徴とさせていただいています。じゃあその通信情報を取得して解析分析していろんな知見を得ていくといったところで、じゃあどんな知見が得られるのといったところをちょっとここに4つ大きく書かさせていただいております。まず1つは資産管理です。デジタルトランスフォーメーションであったりスマートファクトリー、いろんな角度で進めていこうと思ったときに、やはり例えば製造業の工場であったときに、工場で動いている稼働資産って、実はちょっとブラックボックスだったりするようなケースが多いんではないかなと思います。でこれからいろんなことを進めていく、IoT のセンサーをつなげていく、稼働機器の状況を見ていくみたいなことをやっていったときに、まずはきちんと工場の中で何が動いてるんだろうかということをきちんとまずは資産情報、インベントリー情報をきちんと可視化していく必要があると。そういった中で、スキャダフェンスがまずできる1つ目のところといったところは、稼働資産の資産台帳を自動的に生成していきます。なので、通常は Excel 管理、マニュアル管理、ネットワーク構築した機器作ったときに構築した5年前のものはあるんだけど、最新のものはないといった状況はほとんどだと思いますけれども、常に最新の工場の稼働資産の情報というものをアップデートしていく。アップデートして持っていくことができる。これができることによって、当然のことながら、機器の稼働状況であったりとか、操作ログみたいなものも見ることができますし、それから野良端末とか言われる、シャドウ IT、シャドウ OT と言われるですね、会社できちんと認知をしていない機器が動いているケースというのは、多々あるというふうに聞いています。そういったものをきちんと見つけていくといったようなところ。で、ポイントになってくるのは今日のテーマで思います。工場 IoT と進めていこうと思ったときに、工場の設備何があるのか分からないと IoT というのはなかなか進めることは難しいと思います。なので、まずは今動いている稼働資産をきちんと見えるようにした上で、じゃあどの資産に対して、稼働状況を確認してからの IoT の施策を打っていくのかということをしていくための準備作業としての資産管理。これが1つ目の機能になります。2つ目がネットワーク管理です。通常もう産業システム、制御システムというのはもうネットワーク上で動いています。なので、そのネットワークの構成がどういうふうになっているか、例えば外部にさらされているような機器がないかとか、ネットワークサイバーエクスポージャーみたいな言い方をしますけれども、そういったものがないかあったりとか、もしくは誰と誰がどういう通信をしているか、その通信の内容がどうなっているか、量がどうなっているか、そこがボトルネックになって障害につながっていかないかみたいなところも含めて、ネットワーク管理をしていくことができます。3番目に異常検知です。我々は振る舞い検知型のソリューションです。通常の正しい生産活動が行われている状態を学習して、 それを解析、分析して、それと異なる怪しい動きがあったときに異常として検知すると。ですので、ただ単純に、もしかするとサイバー行為かもしれないといったものを初期段階で見つけるということではなくて、もしかすると生産活動に影響がある、もしくは事故につながるような動きがあったときに、それを早い段階で見つけて事故を防いでいこうといった意味合いでの異常検知を行うこともできるようになっています。最後がコンプライアンスです。我々の製品はセキュリティリスクアセスメントを自動的に行うソリューションです。何に対して行うかというと、世界標準のフレームワークでいくつか皆様ご存知の IEC62443 だったり、西東の CSF だったりとか、ISO であったりとか、そういった世界標準のフレームワーク、ガイドラインの要求事項といったものがシステム上にプリビルドされています。それに対して今、この自社のどこどこの工場、もしくはサプライヤーの工場が今どのレベルにいるのかといったものをリアルタイムで見ていくことができますので、当然その事業継続という観点もありますし、サプライチェーンリスク管理といったところからもコンプライアンス向上のために役立てていただける機能も提供させていただいております。次のページお願いします。いろんなユースケース、我々日本国内で導入させていただいているお客様、海外で導入させていただいているお客様、いろんなモチベーションで私どものソリューションを導入、ご検討いただいております。例えばデジタルトランスフォーメーションという観点で言いますと、当然のことながら多品種少量生産といったようなことを考えていこうと思ったときのスマートファクトリーみたいなことをやっていこうと思ったときに、じゃあ先ほど言いましたように工場の中きちんと見える化していかなきゃいけない、工場 IoT 進めていく上で、我々が今現状どうなっているかということをきちんと可視化して俯瞰で見えるようにしていかなきゃいけないという考え方一つあるかと思います。またコンプライアンスという観点で言いますと、先ほど言いましたサプライチェーンリスク管理というところもありますけれども、やはりそのコロナ禍になってサプライヤーの見直しといったものも行われて始めています。で、今までは品質と価格だけでサプライヤーを決めていたものに対して事業の継続性、コロナだけではなくてサイバー攻撃も含めた事業継続性をきちんと担保できるところを、セキュリティを含めたところをきちんと公正な形で客観的に再評価をしていくといったところ、そういったものに対してスキャラフェンスをご利用いただいているケースもあります。それから情報システムという観点で言いますと、IoT に関連するかもしれませんけれども、今まで OT の環境というのは、サイロと言われていて、外とつながっていないような状況になっていくことが多かったですけど、今どんどんつながってきています。一番のきっかけになってきているのは、IT 系の ERP と工場の MES をつなげていって生産効率を上げていくこと、システムで自動化していこうといった流れをしていこうと思ったときに、じゃあセキュリティの不安はありませんかと、そういったものをきちんと払拭していこうと。それから生産管理部門、OT の方々ですね、の観点からすると、特にコロナ禍になって遠隔保守といったものが増えてきています。今後は自動操業みたいなものも考えていかなきゃいけないとなったときに、じゃあ外部からのアクセスを許すのはいいけれども、その外部からのアクセスしている人たちが何をどういうふうにしているのかというのをきちんと見えるようにして、安全な形で遠隔保守であったりとか、自動操業みたいなものを進めていくためのツールという形で使っていただくようなケースが増えてきております。次のページお願いします。主な導入実績です。セキュリティのソリューションですので、なかなかお客様の、お名前を使わさせていただけるケースというのは少ないんですけれども、日本国内でも村田製作様であったりとか、三井不動産様であったりとか、そういった、主要なお客様で導入が進んでおります。製造業のお客様だけではなくて、アメリカでは社会インフラ系、クリティカルインフラストラクチャーといったところでの導入も進んでおります。ですので、先ほどの受賞のお話でありますけれども、市場からの評価、それからお客様からも非常に高い評価をいただいているソリューションだというふうにご理解をいただければと思います。ぜひご興味をお持ちの方いらっしゃいましたら、デモとご覧いただけますので、ご連絡を頂戴できればと思います。以上になります。ありがとうございました。
竹力さん、どうもありがとうございます。続きまして、本日の企業紹介5社目といたしまして、障害を未然に防ぐことを重視しているバックソフト社について CEO のガイ・レベントン氏よりご紹介をいただきます。Over to you, Guy.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Guy Leventon. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I'm the CEO of Becksoft, and I'm here to present the company. What do we do? What do we do in Japan specifically? And I will be focusing on an upcoming solution that we have for predictive maintenance for the industrial sector. With this solution, we monitor in real time heavy machinery, such as motors, pumps, and other production line equipment. Can you please keep to the next slide? Thank you. To determine actual overall system health and detect problems in advance before they may occur and develop into critical issues. With these solutions, company can plan in advance and avoid unplanned and unnecessary downtime of any kind. Next slide, please. Thank you. So who we are? Becksoft is an IoT company established in Israel in 2008. In fact, we were one of the first IoT companies 13 years ago in the world. Since 2018, Becksoft is a subsidiary of Sun Corporation in Japan. And what do we do? What do we do best? Becksoft utilizes artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms together with cloud technology to turn any device or equipment into a smart and cloud-connected device. We operate in various industries, water, energy, agriculture, equipment manufacturing, smart cities, and of course we adopt Industry 4.0 standards. Next slide, please. In Japan, we work in collaboration with our parent company, Sun Corporation, where Becksoft software solution is applied on Sun's hardware, such as the NX6 Rooster, for those of you who know it as a gateway. Together, Sun and Becksoft provide value-added services to our clients, increasing productivity, efficiency, and we basically promote innovation through IoT and machine-to-machine technologies. Next slide, please. One of the most significant value-add service that we can provide for the industrial industry is predictive maintenance. We basically harness the data, the power of the data of IoT, big data, artificial intelligence, cloud technology, in order to improve productivity and avoid any type of unplanned downtime of any kind. Next slide, please. So before I move into our solution, let me try to align on the terms. There's typically three types of maintenance methods. Reactive maintenance is where companies repair the equipment or the parts only after the part has failed or when an incident occurred. Of course, this creates a lot of, may create some unplanned downtime, but in some cases, this is good enough and this is the method that was chosen. With preventing maintenance, companies schedule regular periodical checks. Let's say every 10,000 hours of operation or something like that. And at that time, regardless of anything, because this was the decision, we take the system down, we deal with every element, with every part, we exchange everything, whether it was necessary or not. Sometimes it was too early and we created some downtime for no reason at all. With predictive maintenance, we collect data from sensors and other inputs. We monitor the data in real time to determine the actual system health. And also in addition to that, we detect early signs of failures before they develop into costly incidents. Next slide, please. Becksoft, actually in collaboration with other companies in Israel and in Europe, we harnessed our IoT platform in order to develop a predictive maintenance solution for the industrial market. What do? We collect data in real time for the purpose of ongoing monitoring. We create alerts and we allow continuous monitoring of the system And at the same time, we analyze the same data that we collect to detect early signs of potential future problems. In addition to that, we provide recommendations, very specific recommendations of what is the potential problem, also what is the potential solution for the problem in order for companies to plan in advance. Our multidisciplinary solution provides both the continuous data collection for real-time monitoring and alerts, allows companies to remote operate the systems, and at the same time, we provide the future analysis of what is the upcoming issue. Our solution as that we developed is very easy to install. Not yet, please go back one. Thank you. Very easy to install. It's a plug and play, you plug it and you live. Maintenance pre-operation, meaning that once you have deployed our solution, you do not need to maintain it anymore. As I mentioned, it allows remote access and control to the heavy machinery of every company. And it also provides better data and insights, information for any experts that you have as companies in order to analyze the data. Next slide now, please. So here's our contact, whether me in Bexsoft in Israel or the Sun Corporation M2M division in Japan. We urge you to contact us and explore collaboration between us and you. Thank you very much.
ガイさん、ありがとうございます。IoT が提供するつながりは多くのチャンスをもたらします。本日の企業紹介6社目は、そのつながりを物流に応用しているカルタセンスになります。カルタセンスの CEO、アビブ・ペレド氏より会社紹介をいただきます。Over to you, Aviv.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me in this amazing IoT seminar. I would like to introduce today CartaSense. And let's start with the next slide, please. The next one, please. Okay. So CartaSense is an IoT service provider for the smart logistics and smart facility monitoring markets. Today, we address the pharmaceutical market, the medical devices, and the food logistics and food facility monitoring. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay. So here's a snapshot of some of our market segments and the customers. You can see here pharmaceutical manufacturers and food manufacturers, food retail, warehouses, both for food and pharmaceuticals, third-party logistics companies. For instance, if you see on in the middle of the slide, some of our customers, you can see Kuehne+Nagel, which is one of the largest third-party logistics, and their specialties is considered #1 in pharmaceutical shipments, and we are their selected solution for temperature and relative humidity monitoring throughout the supply chain. In the top middle, you can see a unique solution. One of our other customers is SkyCell, which is a special manufacturer for passive containers that preserve the temperature for pharmaceutical in a passive way, and our sensors are embedded inside each and every one of their containers. We are a service provider. That means it starts from the sensors and ends in the services in the CartaSense Cloud, which are, of course, reporting and the analytics. Could you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so this is a snapshot of how the CartaSense systems looks like. At the top, you can see our hardware, which is gateways that are placed all around the world, and we are already placed also in Japan. We are placed already in Narita and Kansai airports for one of our customers, Kuehne+Nagel, which I mentioned before. And the other side of the hardware is our sensors. Most of them are disposable, and I'll talk about it a little bit in a while. And in the middle and the bottom, you can see that our cloud system supplies prediction, risk assessment, lane assessment for logistics lanes, of course, reporting and alerting. In facility monitoring, we also provide mapping and validation for the pharmaceutical cooling rooms, like Swissport, which is one of our customers, and we're also in communication with the Swissport Japan to close such a deal. And on the right hand, you can see in basic how the CardoSense cloud looks like. It's based on AWS infrastructure, and it supports both our web applications and APIs to other systems, usually large companies like Kuehne+Nagel or SkyCell. They use their own IT system and we integrate to their IT. And smaller companies, or they have other considerations and they don't want us to connect directly to their IT system, or they don't have the specific capabilities to embed our solution to their system, use our own web applications. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is unique with our solution? So on the lower end, on the sensors end, our sensors are using a full mesh technology. What does it mean, full mesh? Well, first of all, our mesh technology is at a very lower frequency than is usually used. It's a 433 megahertz. It is not like the Zigbee or Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, which are 2.4 gig and above, usually. Second, it is a full mesh. That means that each and every wireless sensors of CardoSense is also a repeater. That means the information hops from one sensor to another, giving the capabilities of having only one CardoSense infrastructure, one CardoSense gateway in a very large facility. And all the network is connected. If a sensor does not see the gateway, it will see another sensor that will hop the information to another sensor, and making this communication network very robust and very self-healing. And we can handle more than 15 hops from, which are circles from the gateway, and much more than 1,000 sensors in one gateway. Next slide, please. Okay, our sensors are, all of our sensors are, have air approvals. In most of the air cargo companies, more than 40 of them right now. You can see in the picture, the top left, our U sensor, which is a disposable sensor. It is very low power, very low cost, enables disposing of the sensor. That means there is no reverse logistics of sensors back to the initiation point. You get dispose of it at the end of the shipment, and then you get dispose of it either by disposing it as a regular electronic waste, or we have a program to send the sensors back to us, and we refurbish the sensors. Next slide, please. I'll do it very quick. Okay, you can skip this slide. Okay, so on the other side of the solution, the web application, we of course we supply the reporting and alerting, but we also supply analytics of machine learning. Predictive maintenance is one of our main solutions to be added in the near future for facility cooling rooms. And if you go to the next slide, this is a predictive prediction of temperature excursion in transit. You can see that an email notification was sent at the left side of the slide, and you can see that the real temperature excursion has occurred almost 24 hours later on. That means that we can supply in real-time prediction that a shipment that is sensitive to temperature will have temperature excursion before it happens, and you can take action before it happens. Next slide, please. Okay, on the end of this year, we're going to release a new product, which is the O sensor. It is both a sensor and a gateway. It's a mobile gateway, and some of its features are, of course, it will be disposable as well. It communicates with CausaSense wireless sensors. It communicates with the cellular network. It is non-lithium battery. That means no dangerous goods marks on the sensors themselves. And one of the scenarios of using it is you place, for instance, you have a shipment of 4 pallets. That means you place one U sensor inside each pallet, and the O sensor is transferring the information from these sensors up to the cloud. Next slide, please. Okay, in the next year, we're going to release also an O sticker, which is a revolutionary solution to box level monitoring, tracing. And I'll be happy to talk about it later on if it is something of interest. I'm urged to finish my presentation. So thank you all. Thank you very much.
アビブさん、ご紹介ありがとうございます。ここで予定では皆様からのご質問への質疑応答、Q&A セッションを予定しておりましたが、本日は時間の関係で割愛をさせていただきます。ウェビナー中に頂戴したご質問への回答は後日メールにてご案内をさせていただきます。それでは本日のウェビナー閉会のご挨拶を駐日イスラエル大使館経済講師兼経済貿易ミッション代表ダニエル・コルバー氏よりいただきます。ダニエルさん、よろしくお願いいたします。
ありがとうございます。皆さん、こんにちは。It's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank all of our viewers, all of our presenters today for their inciting solutions and ideas about IoT. Certainly, new technology and innovation is always exciting, especially when it's so crucial for companies to be able to better compete globally. And we are in the middle of the digital transformation revolution, also accelerated by the global pandemic. So this is obviously also very interesting and a challenge, and every challenge is also an opportunity. This has certainly been the case for Israel-Japan relations. In 2020, we've seen a record high investments from Japan into Israeli high tech, amounting to 11% of total investments of Israel from abroad. And in 2021, the first semester, we've already reached that amount of all of 2020, with a lot of partnerships, a lot of Japanese companies opening offices in Israel, looking for innovation. A lot of companies from Israel setting up offices here. Today we heard some companies that are already here or trying to reach the Japanese market. And so this is obviously very, very exciting. We at the Economic and Trade Mission of Israel in Japan, part of the embassy, together with our partners in Japan and in Israel, working hard to facilitate these business cooperations and promote collaborations between Israel and Japan. So we are very happy about these positive outcomes of recent years, but there's still much more potential for collaboration. So we'd like to invite all of you to stay connected with us. Most of you already know us and are participating in our activities, and those who are not, Zehi, please do. And I can tell you that we have an event coming up next month on smart mobility. That will be on October 6th. Very interesting companies, latest technologies on electrification and on shared mobility and cyber. So please stay tuned. And last but not least, I would like to wish you all, as the Ambassador Yafa Ben-Ari did, a very good and healthy and successful New Year's, Shana Tova, and thank you very much. ありがとうございました。
ダニエルさん、どうもありがとうございます。本日ご紹介させていただいたイスラエルの IoT 企業について、こちらのスライドで最後にまとめておりますので、改めてご確認ください。より詳しい情報や今後こうした企業とのお話を希望される場合は、駐日イスラエル大使館経済講師兼経済貿易ミッション代表ダニエル・コルバー氏まで E メールにてお問い合わせください。こちらのスライドで E メールアドレスをご案内させていただいておりますので、ぜひこちらまでご利用ください。このウェビナー終了後、参加者アンケートが表示されますので、ぜひ回答にご協力をお願いいたします。本日のウェビナーはこちらで終了となります。本日はお忙しい中、IoT によるデジタルトランスフォーメーションの加速化ウェビナーにご参加、ご清聴いただきまして誠にありがとうございます。これにて終了とさせていただきます。